So I want to continue that. But before we do, I want to say thank you to those that have been following on the Bethel Facebook page, those that have been just faithful to go and listen there. I've decided to not only go live on the Bethel Facebook page, but just to go live on my personal page as well, just because I feel that uh, maybe more could be reached with it and maybe somebody could be blessed by it. As always, make sure that you share this with somebody. Tag 3 people in the comments. If you have any prayer requests, let us know down below, and we will be praying with you about those, and we will get our prayer teams to pray with you as well. So, as before I said, we've been talking about Gideon. This is season 2, lesson 2 in this will be the last lesson on Gideon. But today we're going to be talking about consecration and leadership. And so we're going to be basing it off Judges 6:25 through 32. And so I'm going to just read those verses to us real quick. Judges 6:25 through 32. And it says, "And it came to pass the same night that the Lord said unto him, Take thy father's young bullock, even the second bullock of 7 years old, and throw down the altar of Baal that thy father hath, and cut down the grove that it is by. And build an altar unto thy Lord upon the top of this rock, in the ordered place, and take the second bullock and offer a burnt sacrifice with the wood of the grove which thou shalt cut down. Then Gideon took 10 men of his servants and did as the Lord had said unto him. And so it was, because he feared his father's household and the men of the city, that he could not do it by day, but he did it by night. And when the men of the city arose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was cast down, and the grove was cut down that was by it, and the second bullock was offered upon the altar that was built. And they said one to another, Who had done this thing? And when they inquired and asked, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, hath done this thing. And then the men of the city said unto Joash, Bring out thy son, that he may die, because he hath cast down the altar of Baal, and because he hath cut down the grove that was by it. And Joash said unto all that stood against him, Will ye plead for Baal? Will ye save him? He that will plead for him, let him be put to death whilst it is yet morning. And if he be God, let him plead for himself, because one hath cast down his altar. Therefore on that day he called Jerubbaal, saying, Let Baal plead against him, because he hath cast down his altar. And so today we're going to talk about just consecration in our lives as leaders. Consecration, hagiazo, it means to formally dedicate to a divine purpose, to set apart for the holy use of God, to cleanse externally, to separate from the profane. I apologize about that. Sometimes the internet acts crazy here. But are we going to do things to the best of our ability? Are we going to try to do something else, right? Are we going to act like it doesn't matter? Because God will prove us in those small things. God will prove us in those areas that sometimes we feel is beneath us. And when we do this, and let me tell you something, when you do something to the best of your ability, that's something that God has called you to do, there will be backlash. Obeying God will always get the devil's attention. It will always bring the devil around to notice you. Right? You don't want the devil to notice anything you're doing. Don't do nothing for God. But when you start on the right path with God and doing things for God, he will attack you. Be attacked for new proportions, right? A friend of mine always says, new levels bring new devils. Perhaps even from other Christians. There could be times where somebody doesn't understand what God is calling you to do and asking you to do. And so when the men of the city arose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was cast down, and the grove was cut down that was by it. And the second bullock was offered upon the altar that was built. And they said one to another, Who hath done this thing? And when they inquired and asked, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, hath done this thing. Then the men of the city said unto Joash, Bring out thy son, that he may die, because he hath cast down the altar of Baal, because he had cut down the grove that was by it. And Joash said unto them, or all that stood against him, Will you plead for Baal? Will ye save him? He that plead for him, let him be put to death while it is yet morning. If he be a god, let him plead for himself, because one hath cast down his altar. This is a fascinating passage to me. And we glean some truths from it. That the men of Gideon city didn't like having their sin exposed, right? Because sometimes God, and maybe not to the whole church, but God will expose things to you that you need to correct, and sometimes we don't want to, right? We have these little sins, if I could, in our life that we don't think is necessarily wrong, that we want to just keep going. Yeah. Backsliding Christians don't like to be convicted, right? Even people that are sinning in the church, when a man of God preaches, no matter who it is, an evangelist, pastor, whatever it is, they don't want to be convicted. They don't want their sin exposed in their own life, right? Gideon's consecration also almost brought daily persecution, right, from his own brethren. Imagine being persecuted by your brothers in Christ for being cleaner than them. That seems to always happen a lot, right? When you start getting on the right path, they start calling you, oh, holier than thou, trying to be better than everybody else. And you're really not, right? You're just trying to be as consecrated as you can to God. And they don't understand that. Some people are not going to get it. Some people are not going to understand why all of a sudden you are trying to be better for God. And so sometimes it will bring persecution. Sometimes your own brother and sister. I found out that the ones you help the most is usually the ones that will hurt you the hardest. Usually the ones that say they love you the most is usually the ones that will stab you in the back the fastest. I found that out. And so we have to be willing to say, okay, one thing I love about my father-in-law is he's one of the most forgiving men I've ever met in my life. To the point, if I could be just a little transparent here, that sometimes it drives me nuts. Because sometimes, I want to fight back. Sometimes I want to lash out. Sometimes I want to respond. Sometimes, I want to do something back to the person that is trying to hurt me or talk about me or destroy me or, drag my name through the mud or whatever they're trying to do. And he just calmly reminds me that I need to let God fight my battles, And sometimes, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's hard, right? I don't know if it's the male ego thing inside or what, but there are times where I don't want to lay down and take it. I heard a preacher say one time, God said turn the other cheek, but just remember I only got two of them. So what do I do when both have been turned, right? So I guess we just keep swiveling our head every time they hit us because God says we are to forgive 70 times 7, right? 490 times. What is that, a second per day, month, year? How many times is that? I choose, even though it drives me insane, being a little transparent here, it drives me nuts. I choose to go ahead and just let it go, let it forgive. Because if I do the right thing and I let God fight my battle, it usually will work out. If I lash out, if I do something, if I say something, guess who looks bad? Me. Guess who looks worse? Me. Guess who's probably going to ruin his reputation because he lashed out? Me. Because a lot of times people who do wrong do it where nobody sees, right? But they want you to do a public response. They want you to blow up publicly so everybody sees you blow up. And so everybody, all they see is you blowing up. They don't see what they've done. And so you look worse. So as hard as it is for me to do, and my precious wife, I got to give her props in that area as well. And I guess she's like her daddy there. That she just, she helps me to do that stuff. Cain was set against Abel. We all know that, right? Because he had a better offering to God. His what he brought to God was a lot better than Cain. Cain had the same opportunity to bring what God had asked him to bring, but he didn't. And so we see Cain turned against Abel. Joseph's brethren were set against him because he preached the truth. We see it in Acts chapter 7. Paul was counted an enemy by some of the Galatian brothers because he stood for truth. And so your friends and brethren may turn against you for becoming too holy in their eyes, right? Are set on fire for God. Gideon never defended himself. He was his own father, spoke up for him. Know that you will not have to defend yourself when it comes to the truth. Truth needs no defense, right? If people are coming against you, people are doing things that you shouldn't be saying or shouldn't be doing, don't fight your own battle. Don't fight your own battle. And I just said sometimes that's one of the hardest things for me to do is not to fight my own battle. Sometimes I want to come to my own defense. Sometimes I want to, like I said, lash out and come back at somebody and basically meet me in the parking lot type thing. But I can't, right? I have to be consecrated to God enough that I realize that eventually You know what my dad told me one time? He said, son, sometimes your silence will speak louder than your words. I was going through something in my personal life, and there were some things being said, and my dad said, no, you just remain quiet because you're silenced. He said, what you're going to do is you're going to start trying to defend yourself and make yourself look guilty. What you need to do is let God fight it. You remain quiet, you pray, and you let God expose the truth. And you know what? My dad was right. The truth was exposed. The truth came out. But if I had, as a leader in the church, if I had, as a minister of the gospel, lashed out and tried to fight my own battle, I would have made it 10 times worse. We see it in Stephen's brother. They were set against him because he preached the truth. Gideon never defended himself. And I'll say it again, the truth needs no defense. And if you are truly consecrated to God, and you are obeying God, and you're doing what He says, and you are following God's example, you don't need anything else in your life. Consecration will enable you to become known in your community, right? Gideon's consecration earned him a new name among the people. And a life of evident consecration to God will do the same for you, because they're going to see something's different about you. They're going to see that your attitude is not like everybody else's around them. They're going to see your kindness, your mercy, your grace. Here at the school, sometimes I think my teachers get a little mad at me because I always err on the side of mercy first with my students here at the school. And I think sometimes they want me to take their head off. And sometimes it may be warranted for me to, so to speak, do that. But I choose to say, okay, is there a deeper issue with this student, the reason why they've acted the way they've acted, the way they've done. And because my consecration to God and my obedience to God, and because I know God would show mercy, I know God would show grace, I try to do the same. Is there a time where that runs out? I believe there is. But at first, right? The first, second, third, fourth, fifth time, I'm going to show you grace and mercy. But if it becomes an evident problem, then we'll go somewhere else with it. But my first response, I always want it to be mercy and give them a second chance, because God for sure has given me more chances than I deserve. And so in return, I want to show that. It says, therefore, on that day, Gideon's father called him Jerubbaal, saying, let Baal plead against him, because he hath been thrown down the altar. And so, because Gideon's first test was to clean his house and stand against his father's idolatry, his father was a convert. And it says his father, Joash, changed his name from Gideon to Jerubbaal, meaning opponent of Baal. That is awesome. When we live a life of consecration, okay, if we're living a clean life, a righteous life, a holy life before God, people will take notice of that. And people will want to be converted and say, I want what that person has. When we're full of the Holy Ghost, people will say, I want what that person has. They're full of joy and peace. The world's going to hell in a handbasket, it seems like. And yet, the church of the living God seems to have peace, seems to be flourishing, seems to have revival. I saw a church yesterday post. They were so excited their church was full. The devil can't stop this. I'm fixing to get off on something else, so let me back up. But we have to live a consecrated life to God. And when that happens, people around us will start to be converted. And so that encourages me. And Jerubbaal, an opponent of Baal. Opponent of evil. Opponent of the wrong doctrine. Opponent of the wrong things in our life. Idolatry. Opponent of everything that is against God. Maybe I'm going to change my name to Jerubbaal, because I want to be an opponent of Baal. I want to be an opponent of idolatry and sin in our lives. Because he had attacked Baal, Gideon was known as Baal's opponent for the rest of his life. Are we known as sin's opponent? Are we known as sin's best friend? We have to ask ourselves, right? We all have, and anybody that says they don't, yes, we do. This is why we have to consecrate our life to God on a daily basis. We all have those little secrets. And they're not sins that I think that would send us to hell, or sins that would on a major scale, ruin a ministry. But I'm just talking about those little things that we know is really not pleasing to God. Are we opponent of all of that, or do we have sin in our life that we are best friends with? What is our reputation as a Christian? God selects His leaders from a pool of consecration, and so will we be found standing on the edge, wondering whether we're going to jump in, or will we be found washing in the pool of consecration? I want to leave that with you today. I do apologize about the internet. Sometimes it goes off here at the church, but I want to leave that with you today. Will you be found standing on the edge of the pool of consecration, or would you be found waiting around in it? I hope this has been a blessing to you today. We'll see you next Tuesday. I hope God blesses you abundantly today. Tell somebody about God. Go out and be a great leader today. God bless you.